thrilled himself to be here. Labor Secretary Tom Perez for making a stop with us here tonight. Secretary Perez was nominated by Barack Obama and sworn in on July 23rd, 2013. He's the 26th Secretary of Labor for the United States. Last week, Secretary Perez endorsed Hillary Clinton for president. SEIU is proud to have endorsed Hillary Clinton. And delighted for the supporters of Secretary Perez, all of whom support the issues that matter to Nevada's working families. It's an honor for 1107 to host Secretary Perez this evening. Mr. Secretary, on behalf of the 17,000 working Nevadans, it is our honor to welcome you to SEIU Local 1107.
Great to be here.
Before we start here, we have a table over there that's set up. We want to take a moment of silence for the tragedy in San Bernardino last week. We lost some of our brothers and sisters from SEIU Local 721. So if we could just take a moment of silence in their honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, good evening, everyone. How are you? It's an honor to be here. I want to continue on a slightly somber tone because I want to read a message. I've been in contact with Mary Kay, who is, by the way, one of my favorite people. One of President Obama's favorite people, and one of Hillary Clinton's favorite people, okay? And I want to read something that was read by today at the candlelight vigil that was held. It may actually be being read as we speak, but this is from the President. Our hearts are broken over the attack that occurred at the Inland Regional Center, a tragedy that took the lives of 14 innocent people. We stand with the people of San Bernardino, we stand with the families who lost loved ones, and we stand with the SEIU family as you grieve for 10 of your own members. These Americans were not only dedicated to serving their community, they were also dedicated to making sure that they and their fellow service workers had the chance to earn the middle-class lives they worked so hard for. They embody the values that make America great. We are still working to understand what motivated those revolting acts, but as we know, we see this kind of violence all too often, and we cannot accept it as normal in America, no matter how often it happens in America. Today we mourn the beautiful lives of those we've lost, and as our nation comes together to help San Bernardino begin to heal, we must also come together against that kind of unspeakable violence that shatters too many communities. We have no greater obligation than to do everything in our power to keep communities safe. That's how we honor the victim of this tragedy and how we ensure that America stays the strong, resilient, free country that we have. God bless those we've lost, and may He continue to bless the United States of America. I wanted to read that to you. That's directly from President Obama. And while we would love to be talking about things that are more upbeat, I think it's entirely appropriate to say thank you and to mourn our brothers and sisters. I love your union. I love your union because you fight for everybody. You fight for your members. You fight for folks who need a break. I was in Detroit recently, and I did an event with the Fight for 15 folks. The Fight for 15 is about much more than simply a number. It's the fight for dignity. It's the fight for worker voice. The fight to make sure that as we recover from this recession, the great recession of our lifetime, as we dig out of this ditch, and as we begin to see prosperity again, that it's prosperity for everyone. And you know what I remember most about that meeting? Was the woman I met who's working 30 hours a week in fast food. And the night before I met her, she and her 3 children slept in her car. That's not who we are as a nation. We can do better. And I meet so many people like that across America. We've come a long way, folks. And I'll tell you, I'm proud as hell that I've had the opportunity to work for Barack Obama. And I can tell you, when he wants to talk about union issues, I'm telling you, one of the first people he gets on the phone is Mary Kay Henry, because she's a leader. She's a born leader. And everywhere I go around America, I meet your leadership. I was up in Oregon recently. I was in Detroit. I've been to so many places, and everywhere I go, I've been to Pittsburgh, because at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, you know what? They are the anchor employer of Pittsburgh. But you know what? They're not necessarily the best employer in Pittsburgh. And so there's an organizing campaign. And I went there to meet with healthcare workers to show solidarity, just as we did with the Fight for 15 movement. Because what you're building through the work that you do, quite simply, is the middle class. I want to thank you. I want to thank the union movement for bringing us the weekend.
Yes.
I want to thank you, and I want to thank the union movement for bringing us middle class prosperity. And I want to thank you, perhaps as importantly as anything, for the fact that you define success not simply in terms of how am I doing and how is my family doing. You define success in terms of how is America doing. Because you know what? We all succeed only when we all succeed. That's what America is about. That's what the union movement's been about. I grew up in Buffalo, New York. I was 12 years old when my dad died. And my surrogate father, my best friend's dad, he was a Teamster. And he taught me the collective power of we. You know, the most important word in a democracy is we. Because I got to go to Selma with the president earlier this year. Selma is all about the most important word in a democracy, we. It was about ordinary people who did extraordinary things and brought us a Voting Rights Act. Some people made the ultimate sacrifice. And what you do day in and day out is extraordinary. And so I want to say thank you. It has been an absolute privilege working for this president. We've come a long way. And when you hear the gloom and doom from other people, remind them that in the 3 months before this president took office, this economy lost 2 million jobs. And in the last 69 months, we've gained 13.7 million jobs. In the depths of this recession, we had 7 job seekers for every job opening. Now we have 1.4 job seekers. I'm not very good at math, but I'd rather compete with one person than with 6 people for a job. But we got more work to do. That is undeniable. And I've had a front row seat, a privilege of a lifetime for a kid from Buffalo, I did every job you could do to make ends meet. I didn't know the senator. My favorite senator was a guy named Pell. Because you know what? Those Pell Grants got me through college, okay? And I did a lot of different things. I worked on the back of a trash truck. I worked picking up golf balls. I worked at Sears. I did anything I could do to make myself the money I needed to get through college. And you know what? I'm a better person for it. Because it taught me the value of hard work. And you know what? We're making progress, and don't let anyone... There's a lot of people who are living in a frack-free zone, okay? You say anything you want. There's a lot of people who believe that getting ahead is about dividing America, not uniting America. And so this election is really a crossroads. And as someone who has had a front row seat, I sure as hell don't want to see the progress we made go backward. And that's why, folks, I'm going to say 2 things. I'm proud as hell of the fact that I have the privilege of working for Barack Obama. And I'm proud as hell to endorse Hillary Clinton to be the next president of the United States. I'll tell you why. You can get a real window into someone's moral compass, I always thought, by looking at what they do before they were in the spotlight. I had the privilege of going to a so-called elite law school. I'm never comfortable with that word. I got to go to Harvard. She got to go to Yale. And most of my colleagues, when they got out, they went and made a lot of money. I didn't, because my parents taught me if you want to get to heaven, you better have letters of reference from poor people. And, I got to live that. Okay? That's what they taught me.
Beautiful.
And so, I haven't necessarily made all the money that my colleagues have, but I'll tell you, the non-monetary rewards have been priceless. And that's what she did. Rather than going to Wall Street, she went to rural America. She went, you know what she was doing? Similar stuff that Barack Obama was doing. She was knocking on doors, trying to find out why 2 million people didn't have access to education. And you know what? Is anyone familiar with the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, the IDEA? Yes. I used to be in local government. That is one of the most important pieces of legislation that enables people, kids with disabilities, to get equal educational opportunity. Well, you know what? One of the people who wrote the report and did the ground game to generate the data was Hillary Clinton, knocking on doors for the Children's Defense Fund. One of the most abused categories of workers in America are farm workers. And I've had the privilege of trying to help them. And I was chatting with Secretary Clinton a few weeks ago about my frustration at the fact that some of our wage and hour laws simply don't protect farm workers. And that's not because of neglect. That's because of very affirmative efforts to freeze them out. I get frothed at the mouth when I think about this. Okay? And you know what? She listened dutifully. And then she said, you know what, Tom? I remember when we were organizing farm workers when I was a legal aid lawyer 35, 40 years ago. We ran into this problem. And I'm sitting there. I didn't want to do this because I wanted to listen dutifully too. But I wanted to say, time out. You were organizing farm workers. I didn't know that. And there's just so much about her that you don't know. I'm a proud progressive Democrat. I had the privilege of working at the Department of Justice, and the reason my nomination got tied up is because the Republicans issued an indictment against me. And the charges were that I was a progressive Democrat. Because I had the audacity to say that when unions succeed, America succeeds. I had the audacity to fight for voting rights. I had the audacity to fight for marriage equality. I had the audacity to take on predatory lenders. And they didn't want to do that. And I got more letters than any cabinet secretary on the op-ed page of the Wall Street Journal against my nomination. Wow. And I even have a Supreme Court opinion from this past term, written by Clarence Thomas, a dissent.
Wow.
This is true. Go check it out. Citing me by name. When you're a lawyer, that's a badge of honor. And you know why? Because I had the audacity to fight for fair housing rights. Yeah, oh my goodness, I'm glad you were sitting there.
And thank you.
And so, I know a little bit something about what it means to be a progressive Democrat. And that's what she is. And she has the values. What's getting her up at night, and what gets her up in the morning is all the issues that you fight for every day. Making sure that people get a decent wage, the dignity of work, the right to bargain, the proposition that, the biggest force that brought us the middle class was collective bargaining.
That's right.
And we can't allow that to be eviscerated by the Supreme Court. And I'll tell you one other thing. And sometimes my friends in the progressive community and I have a little bit of a disagreement on this. The thing I learned from Ted Kennedy, who was my boss in the 90s, when I had hair, was the following. Progressives are passionate. Effective progressives understand that idealism and pragmatism are not mutually exclusive. In 96, we were working on the minimum wage. Senator Kennedy tied the Senate up in knots. He worked with President Clinton and then with Newt Gingrich to get an increase in the minimum wage. Was it as much as he wanted? No. It wasn't. But he banked it. And then they go and they fight for more. That's exactly what Hillary Clinton did when we got the state children's health insurance program. If she had her druthers, Estrella, You know, as soon as I talked about the children's health insurance program, Estrella spoke up. That was cute. I like that. As soon as, you know, I mean, she would have wanted more. But she understood that that's what she could get. And she's understood that, you know what? We're helping millions of folks right now. And so that's what progressives are about. They have values that are our middle class values. But they also understand that a progressive makes progress. And that's what she's done in every job she's had. And that's why we need her to complete this unfinished business. Whether it's globally, she understands that economic times and foreign policy times, they test our mettle and they test our values. And she understands that we can pass both those tests. And that's why I'm really excited to support her. And you know what? This election is going to be tight. Because you know what? You look at our nation's history, and you know, there are those who have used fear and division to pit people against each other. Did you hear what one candidate said today? We shouldn't allow Muslims into the United States on the anniversary of Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, right.
We shouldn't allow Muslims into the United States. You know, I used to prosecute hate crimes, okay? Domestic terrorism. I spent 2 years of my life in Lubbock, Texas, prosecuting white supremacists for the racially motivated rampage. They wanted to start a race war against African Americans. Now, I didn't respond to that by rounding up every white person in Lubbock. That's as stupid as it sounds, doesn't it? This is as important as anything. And I am so appreciative of your endorsement of Hillary Clinton, because this is really about who we are as a nation, this election. And I'm confident she's going to win. And I'm confident that one of the main reasons she's going to win is because of folks like you. Just like the folks down in Selma 50 plus years ago. Ordinary people who did extraordinary things. SEIU is anything but an ordinary union. You are an extraordinary union that's doing extraordinary things. So I want to come here and say thank you. And I want to come here and ask you, I know, you know, your jobs are tough enough, your day jobs. And here you're sitting here in a meeting at night. You got a fantastic leader. When I said to Mary Kay, I'm going to go out there, she said, say hello to Sherry. She's good people. And she's right. And I appreciate your leadership. And I'm telling you, we need your boots on the ground, because we're going to out-organize them again. We are right on the issues. We reflect the values of America, and we will win this. And we'll win this with your help. So let's keep getting to work. I know there'll be those tough days, but this is what it's about. It's about that ground game. It's about calling folks up. It's about getting folks out here at the caucus and then getting them back out here in November. It's about telling people the truth and making sure that the fact-free zone that is the Republican primary is not allowed to get away with it in the general election. I know you'll do it. And I want to say thank you so much for everything you're doing. And God bless you.